Hey everybody, and welcome to SpaceWeek for Monday, January 13th, 2020. Now that the holidays are over, things are picking back up. Last Monday, a SpaceX Falcon 9 launched the third batch of 60 Starlink satellites into low Earth orbit. This was the first of what will be up to 26 Starlink launches this year, if SpaceX is able to keep up with the pace they want. Elsewhere in orbit, the SpaceX Dragon CRS-19 cargo spacecraft departed from the International Space Station, deorbited and splashed down in the Pacific Ocean off the coast of California. It was launched up there last month on December 5th, carrying 5,700 pounds of supplies and experiments. As always, Dragon left the station with junk in its trunk, literally, which is an unpressurized section that gets detached from the pressurized cargo capsule prior to deorbiting. The trunk burns up in the atmosphere, while the capsule descends safely on parachutes. As Dragon left the station, its thrusters may have jostled the solar panels of the Northrop Grumman Cygnus 12 spacecraft, which was docked about 28 feet away on the other side of the Destiny module. ISS Commander Luca Parmitano radioed to Mission Control, "Hey, we noticed that while the jets were firing for the departure burn 2, the blast from the engines was shaking quite vigorously the solar panels of Cygnus 12. The ISS crew will inspect Cygnus to see if there was any damage." SpaceX also had a successful static fire test of the Falcon 9 booster that will launch their Crew Dragon in-flight abort test next Saturday. More on that later. While not space-related, but nonetheless fascinating, Elon Musk contributed yet another adorably cringeworthy performance to our collection as he danced with glee at the launch of the Tesla Model Y SUV program at their new Shanghai factory in China, where they just delivered their first cars built outside the United States. Also in China, but much less interesting, a Long March 3B launched the secretive TJSW-5 satellite from Zhishang Satellite Launch Center in Sichuan Province. On Wednesday, NASA's first Space Launch System core stage, about which was recently announced,
"The SLS core stage complete,"
was moved from the Michoud Assembly Facility in New Orleans to Stennis Space Center in Mississippi to begin a lengthy series of green run tests. Green simply means that it hasn't been tested before. This will be the first green run test that NASA has done on actual flight hardware rather than test articles. This particular core stage will fly in the SLS Block 1 configuration on the Artemis 1 mission, which will send an unmanned Orion capsule around the moon and back. The culmination of the green run testing will be an 8-minute test firing of the core stage's 4 RS-25 engines, which are the same engines that were used on the now retired space shuttles. 8 minutes is the length of the burn that will take Orion to the moon. The SLS core stage will make its 9-hour journey from Michoud to Stennis on NASA's one-of-a-kind Pegasus barge, a 310-foot-long vessel built in 1999 to ferry Space Shuttle external fuel tanks and other hardware between New Orleans and Florida, a 900-mile trip along both open ocean and inland waterways. Originally, Pegasus was 260 feet long, but it was refurbished and lengthened back in 2014 to accommodate SLS. Unlike the rocket that it's carrying, Pegasus doesn't have any engines of its own, and relies on tugboats to pull it around. Artemis 1 may launch later this year. The first manned SLS launch, Artemis 2, is scheduled for 2022. NASA Administrator Jim Bridenstine has been aggressively pushing
to land the next man and the first woman on the moon by 2024.
Working toward that goal, last Friday the first class of Artemis astronauts graduated. These are the people who will walk on the moon in a few years, and perhaps even Mars beyond that. Nicknamed the Turtles by the previous astronaut class, a tradition going all the way back to the Mercury 7 in 1962, this class consisted of 11 astronauts from NASA and 2 from the Canadian Space Agency. Astronaut Christina Cook has now been in space for more than 300 days, further securing her record for the longest single spaceflight by any woman. She won't be leaving the station until February 5th. On Friday was the first eclipse of 2020, a penumbral lunar eclipse, which brings us to
the term of the week.
Penumbra refers to the partially shaded outer region of a shadow. The inner, fully shaded region is called the umbra. During a penumbral lunar eclipse, the moon doesn't pass directly behind the Earth, just through its light outer shadow. You aren't likely to even notice a difference in the moon's appearance unless you're looking for it. During a partial lunar eclipse, Earth's darker umbra covers part of the moon, taking a visible chunk out of it. During a total lunar eclipse, the moon passes directly behind the Earth and is blocked from all direct sunlight. The reason why the eclipsed moon looks orange or red is because it's being illuminated by every sunrise and sunset in the world at the same time, as red light wavelengths are bent around the Earth through the atmosphere. If Earth didn't have an atmosphere, the eclipsed moon would not look red. Speaking of blood moons, wolf moons, supermoons, blue moons, people like to assign all sorts of silly and confusing names to the moon, as well as attributing various metaphysical properties to lunar events. A blood moon is just a total lunar eclipse. A wolf moon is any full moon in the month of January. A supermoon is a full moon at perigee, or its closest approach to Earth in its elliptical orbit. A blue moon is the second full moon in the same month, according to the modern usage. It's really not that rare. Please, folks, just call astronomical events what they are, rather than inventing names for them that obfuscate rather than enlighten. Rant over. We have a lot to look forward to this week as well. On Tuesday, January 14th at 7 p.m. Eastern, midnight GMT on the 15th, a Chinese Kuaizhou 1A rocket will launch the Yinhe-1 satellite from Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center in the Gobi Desert of Inner Mongolia, which isn't in Mongolia, it's in northern China. Kuaizhou has 3 solid-fueled rocket stages, with a liquid-fueled 4th stage as part of the satellite system. Yinhe-1 is a tech demo satellite for an upcoming 5G constellation. Also on the 14th at 9:53 p.m. Eastern, 2:53 a.m. GMT on the 15th, another Chinese rocket, the Long March 2D, will launch Jilin-1, NewSat-7, and NewSat-8. Jilin-1 is an Earth observation satellite owned by Changguang Satellite Technology, and the NewSat Earth observation microsatellites are from the Argentinian company Satellogic. On Wednesday the 15th at 5:30 a.m. Eastern, 10:30 GMT, is the first of 3 spacewalks over the next couple of weeks. Astronauts Jessica Meir and Christina Cook will continue installing new lithium-ion batteries on the space station's P6 truss to replace the old nickel-hydrogen ones. Remember, these aren't AA's, these are refrigerator-sized batteries. Then on Monday the 20th at the same time, starting before next week's SpaceWeek episode premieres, they do it again. That should be the last and final spacewalk to install new batteries in the ISS. On Thursday the 16th at 4:05 p.m. Eastern, 9:05 p.m. GMT, an Ariane 5 launches the Eutelsat Connect and GSat-30 satellites. Eutelsat Connect, also called Eutelsat BB4A, will provide broadband internet service to Africa. It's the first satellite built on the new all-electric propulsion Spacebus Neo platform from Thales Alenia Space. GSat-30 is a communications satellite from ISRO, India's space agency. Then on Saturday the 18th, starting at 7:45 a.m. Eastern, 12:45 GMT, SpaceX will launch an unmanned Crew Dragon module on top of a stripped-down Falcon 9 booster and then engage the Crew Dragon's launch abort system while it's in flight. Unlike most SpaceX launches, this Falcon 9 won't have any grid fins or landing legs, and the second stage will be a mass simulator rather than an operational booster. Once the launch abort system is engaged, Crew Dragon's Super Draco engines will propel it up and away from the rocket, where its parachutes can be safely deployed. Finally, an Indian GSLV Mark II launch of the GSat-1 Earth observation satellite that had been scheduled for this week has been delayed until sometime in late January. That's it for this week. Thanks for watching. As always, feel free to like, subscribe, and activate notifications if you don't want to miss anything. SpaceWeek is also available as an audio podcast at rawspace.podomatic.com and on iTunes at tiny.cc/spaceweek. If you enjoy content like this and you'd like to help out, there are Patreon and PayPal links in the description. This channel exists because I have a passion for space and science, but it does take a lot of work, sometimes 20 or 30 hours per week in my spare time. So it really stinks when YouTube demonetizes my channel, which they have done again for the 3rd or 4th time. They do this because I have what they consider to be too much reused content such as launch live streams and Starman. Even though I don't actually monetize those videos, the fact that they're on my channel still counts against me. I have no plans to stop hosting live streams. After all, that's why most of my subscribers are here. And Starman is definitely not going anywhere. So YouTube will likely continue to demonetize me. Which is why it's so helpful when someone chooses to contribute via Patreon or PayPal. As an added bonus, supporters will get early access to SpaceWeek episodes, so they don't have to wait until 11 a.m. Eastern on Monday. Thank you all very much for flying raw space, and see you next time.